Yes, we are live. This is Eli Ochiltree of the SnoKing Beekeepers Association. It's our third Wednesday meeting, monthly meeting, July 19th. And we're going to talk a lot about the fair, about what's going on in our hives, the queen rearing workshop. I'll give you a quick agenda here. How's that? First, I got to uncover, I think the way I'm sharing the scout now, people can see the screen, right? Real quick, I did write an agenda because no good meeting happens without an agenda. So we're going to have Tim talk about how to enter the Evergreen State Fair with all your bee products. And he has a honey booth, which I know that he sent me the link to. And I don't know if you can put that in chat, Tim. If you would like to just work at the inside booth in the shade, you can sit down whenever you want to. I mean, there's a number of people who need to do that. And who knows how hot it'll be. So you will still get journeyman points. You know, just tell us, either us or if you're with another club, tell them. Well, and we'll log you in that you're doing hours if you need it for journeyman service credits. So we'll talk a lot about our fair booth after that, a little bit about extraction and marketing, because it kind of fits in with some of the entries. Then our club apiaries, and then seasonal concerns, okay? What everybody's seeing going on, and you're trying to figure out what to do, or you're trying to figure out how to explain it to someone. I just went to someone who made splits every time it looked like there was a swarm. Ended up with 6 boxes, 6 stacks, but really only needed 2, maybe 3. So I think he's going to be back down to 2. We took 6, we moved them down to 4. He's going to do one more step and get down to 3. Okay, so we get off track and we need help. So I'm going to talk about that, and this concerns, but what I really wanted to do is get to Tim's slides. Tim is the supervisor for the whole bee display part of the the Evergreen State Fair in Monroe, Washington, which is our big fair. And I'm getting there. Okay, there it is. Wait, I found it. I put up the web page so that everybody would know this is easy to find, easy to do, right? Super easy. So Tim is in charge of all that, the outside and the indoor honey booth, where you can make your entries. So Tim, do you want to explain it? I put a couple of slides here if it isn't too interfering, or unless you already have some.
I actually like what you did there. That's really nice. It is open class, which means everybody can join. We're not 4-H, we're not FFA, and so all of you are able to enter in this. And we are open class honey. And when you go to the Evergreen State Fair site, you would go down to departments, and you did a great job, Eli. Thank you.
Okay, so departments here. Here there was a little thing you can enter online.
Yes.
Anyway, I clicked one of those and I got to the next thing.
And then you get to the next thing, and we are Department P, like in Papa.
Yep, here.
And yes.
Right there, honey.
And you open it up, and it will actually, I don't know, are you live or are you just
No, I just got these because I'm not good at this tech stuff.
All right. So then it will look similar to this. And okay. It's got a whole page of...
No, I didn't put that in. Okay.
All right. It has a whole page of your eligibility, all that, but what type of product are you going to enter? And so there are things like extracted honey and chunk honey, creamed honey, comb honey, beeswax, pollen, like gadgets or heaviest frame, or even an educational display like a poster of something, of how you poster explaining how to rear queens. That would be something to do. I'm going to talk about a few of the items right now, and I'm always open for questions on these. I'll run through them fast, and we'll go back through and yeah, ask me specific ones. So I'm going to start with the extracted honey, and you won't have to won't have to figure out what you do, just guess on when you do an entry, and we will make adjustments when you bring them in. But we use something, it's called a jack scale, and on it are the different colors of honey, how dark. We don't care if it is fireweed or blackberry or knotweed, whatever it is, we go by color when we're judging. And so we'll write down what color it is, and the scale goes from white, water white to dark amber, I think. And you can enter one set of jars for each color you have. So you can ultimately, you know, have 8 separate entries if you have that many different types of honey or colors of honey. Your entry will consist of 3 1-pound jars. A 1-pound jar of honey is a 12-ounce jar in liquid measurement. This here is a queen line jar. They're kind of narrow, a little fatter. That is one of the jars you could use. Another one is just a round 12-ounce jar, no extra markings on the jar. A jar like this, it's, you know, like it says ball on the side, that is not acceptable, and it'll be disqualified. So you need 3 jars filled up to make it happen. Sorry, I'm hard to work backwards. Let's get this as close as I can. There's a ring right here, right at the bottom of where the lid screws on. That is the height of the honey in your jar for entry. And they should all 3 be in that shadow of that ring. And shadow, I mean like the center of it, or as close as possible. You'll want it full with no defects, no wax, things like that. So now is a good time. You'll extract here real soon with some of your honey, possibly, or some that you've extracted as of last year. That's anything you do after the fair last year counts this year. You would fill 3 jars, and my suggestion to you is you fill them above that ring. And when your wax and everything, debris settles out up at the top, if you fill it above, you put a little piece of plastic wrap and tap it in so it's touching the honey. Then before the fair, you peel that off, it'll bring all that debris with it, and then you just spoon down to the height, so you have all 3 jars the same height and no debris in it. If you need them to settle out a little faster, you can put them in a box, drive around with them for a few days. They'll settle out really nice. When you bring them to the fair, you'll want to bring them in such a way that the lid will have no honey on them. So now you would put a piece of plastic that just covers the top and not touching the honey anymore. You put your lid on, then when you get there, we take that plastic off, and your lids are clean, your jars are free of fingerprints, things like that. We try to handle them so they won't get fingerprints, because dirty jars will get points marked down. The judges will go through, they'll taste, they'll look at the color, they'll check to see the moisture content. If you're extracting capped honey, you're more than likely going to have a good moisture content. If you need help, if you contact me, we could probably make arrangements. I can measure it. Snohomish Bee Company, I believe they still do that. I didn't ask them if they would. So, but you'll want to make sure it's in that range, and I'm happy to help with that. Let's see what else in the jars. That's pretty much it. For jars of honey, and that would be extracted. Like I say, if you have 8 different colors of honey, you'll have 3 jars of each one. Bring them in. We want to see these entries, and for the judges that get to do this, they are in heaven, because they get to taste honey all night long that first night. Then there's another way of doing it is chunk honey. It's any cut comb placed in a glass jar, and so it'd be in your jar, surrounded with honey, and you'll want the air bubbles out. You won't want fingerprints in it, things like that. And you need, again, 3 jars, and you want all the cut comb looking alike, because that's one of the ways they'll judge that. I don't know if creamed honey, it would be 3 1-pound jars as well. And the only main, I mean, these are all pretty much the same thing, and no extra markings, things like that. And then another one I should stop there and ask for questions, because that's what the majority of people are going to enter. So I ran through this really fast. It's kind of explained in when you look up the department, it gives you a rough explanation. But if you want help with that, I'm here to do that. That's it. So does anybody have any questions?
Okay, Tim, you get part of the honey back, don't you? If you
get
ticket,
almost 100% of your honey back.
Okay, so you're not losing all this. You could do what was it you said, 9 colors or something?
Yeah, 8 colors, yeah.
8 colors. And is there a youth group and an adult group? Is it all?
No, it's a blind test, and the judges don't know who did what. It's really fun when the kids, especially kids, they get ribbons and beat adults, and they're so happy. So we want to see that. We want the younger kids to enter and learn.
Oh, the expected moisture content in the chat, someone asked. Oops.
Oh, the moisture content. What is it? 18. I believe it's 18.3 and less is acceptable.
Sorry, I went the wrong way. I'm sorry, confusing you there.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. we got a little thing. I don't know. Some people have them, refractometers. Nice little handy device. You put it on there, and you look at the sun, and it will show, as it shows a nice little line of right where your moisture content is. The only honey I've ever seen where there was problems when it was at the fair was the knotweed honey from the year before it started crystallizing, and the moisture content seemed to have risen. And I know this from experience, disqualified jars of honey. And it was good when I put it in there, but it wasn't good at that day. So it's easy to do. Like I say, I'm happy to check it beforehand. We'll just make arrangements of how to make that happen. I mean, that was the only question. I know I ran through it really fast. All right. Well, we'll go on. Another one that we do is comb honey. And if you pull out a frame that it's wall to wall, it's beautiful white. I mean, they've filled all the way to the edges with honey and capped it off both sides. That's a frame that's just beautiful. That'll be front and center in any display. You would put it in a freezer, keep it aside, make it safe. To bring it in, you would wrap it with plastic wrap, a couple wraps around. Sorry, I'll grab a frame real quick.
I think Tim is leading up to one category for frames of honey is the largest one, and some of those are huge. It's like growing the biggest melon or pumpkin at the fair.
Yeah. So, oops, we'll get back here. A frame, and you just run it plastic around both sides, wrap it up, so if it does drip honey, you won't be ruining all the other displays. There's square. I don't know if anybody has done squares or rounds. It would be 3 entries wrapped in clear plastic wrap. Unless it's a Ross round, then you would just put the cover on that cassette. And they should have clear covers on both sides. Cut comb honey is another entry, and that's if you don't have plastic foundation and you let the bees build it out, you can do a nice little cut comb. That's one you would freeze. You would bring it out, set it on a cookie sheet or whatever. You'd cut your square and let the excess honey drip out as it warms out of the comb, and then you would set it into a plastic container. And a nice plastic container, you can get them sometimes from your local bakery where they sell the little cake plastic. They're about 4 inches square. Those are really nice for holding the cut comb. Another fun category is beeswax. And there's a number of different ways. Just one of them is just a pure block of beeswax. It's 1 pound or more. And this one from a beeswax mold, but you can put it in any shape you want. I've in the past used the bottom of an old ice cream bucket, things like that. It just has to weigh more than 1 pound. The judges are going to look for cleanliness, see if they see pollen in your wax. They're going to smell it, and they're going to look for how light the wax is. So if you have one that's all cappings, it's going to be almost just a beautiful white, and it smells so good when it does. You do that. And you wouldn't wrap that up. You bring it in, usually I use wax paper to keep it from getting fingerprints and things like that on. Candles. You can have molded candles. Yeah, anything. It would be a set of 2. Yeah, and one thing Judge will be looking at is, are they identical? Are they the same height? I don't know if you can tell, but they're close, but they're not the same color. And so those would be marked down. You'd want to make your pour, if you can, out of the same batch of wax. And it could be any kind of, it could be the little bears, it could be the nice little eggs that you get. There's lots of different ways to do it. This is just a cheap mold I had from another time. I used it. If you would like to dip your candles, I'm sorry I don't have a good display. We kind of burned them, but they would be connected. So you dip them from the top, and it's quite a few different dips to build it up, but they'd be uniform size, length, and everything. You can do things like just without wick, like I've used candy molds and done a set of hearts, and it has to be at least 4 ounces, excuse me. And you can't add anything in like scents or anything like that. I should make that all the wax. There's no additives. You can hand carve if you like to do that. Make a block of wax and hand carve a figurine. If you can do that, that would be fun. And again, they have to weigh 4 ounces minimum. Okay. Another one, I don't know if anybody's collecting pollen, but if you do that, it would be 3 12-ounce jars of pollen filled the same way as if you would do extracted honey. And then if you get a judge that doesn't like pollen, sometimes I have known to hear that, oh, I'm going to do that just to make that judge suffer. But they will taste it. They will see if you've dried it properly. And I don't know, it's different. Pollens taste so different. It's amazing. Maybe you like building gadgets. You want to try to make your beekeeping life a little better, and you have an idea that you tried. You would write down what you did. You'd make it. You would give a brief description of what you did, what you were planning on. Maybe it didn't work, but it's good to know, and good to see that people are trying new things. Then another one of my favorites is the heaviest frame. It's just trying to get a really heavy frame of honey. It's so much is cut off when you extract, but I think we got 12-pound frame last year, which is just unheard of for a single deep. But we do have there's the shallow frames, there's Western frames, there's a 3/4 depth frame, and there's deeps. You can enter one from all 4 of them combinations. And they don't have to look pretty. They don't even have to be all capped off. You just want the biggest, heaviest frame you can find. And those are fun to do. And I briefly said something about educational display, and I don't have the actual requirements in front of me, but in Department Z, like in zebra, they actually have the regulations for that. And some are the trifolds, and you make it nice and block so people could read, nice pictures so they could understand what you were doing, whether they're hand drawn or actual pictures. And that is pretty much the whole department read through one piece at a time. And I'm counting on Eli to share my information with you. She's got my phone number. Share that with them. And if you don't want to ask a question here online, please go ahead and give me a call, or text me is the best way to do it. That way I can get back to you as soon as I can, because if I'm working behind a counter, I just have to wait a little bit. Are there any other questions or wants from me?
Okay, so anything that was honey was 3. Submit 3 samples. Canvas was 2, and frames is only 1, though, right?
Frames is only 1.
Okay.
You're either going for the best looking, perfectly filled out frame, which I was helping my neighbor the other day. He pulled out some frames. He put 6 aside. He only can enter 1. Mm-hmm. But if he makes a mistake and gets a fingerprint, he has backups.
Gadgets. Did you mention gadgets?
Yeah, I did mention gadgets, and that's anything. I have somebody that was trying to figure out one to make a following board that can combine 2 colonies of bees that are in a horizontal hive. Because when you do it in Langstroth, you put a piece of paper down and they get between them and everything's fine. But in a horizontal hive, we got to figure out how we can connect them without having a fight. So he's working on that. You know, that's just a gadget, and you explain what you're doing, what you hoped would have happened, and what did happen if you know a result. And that comes with your entry. Maybe you designed a new horizontal hive that you want to enter, and we'll find a room for it.
And some of them are small too. I know Ron likes to 3D print. Ron is our Granite Falls guy, and he's always trying to figure out how to change the entrances, make little entrance reducers, or, you know, so they tunnel in. He wants to try out all these ideas like that. Things like that would be good.
So right? That would be a really good entry, and then that lets the people that are going through the fair know what we're doing, and we're having fun. But they just are accompanied with the description of what was happening.
Okay, let's see. I didn't check the chat. Let's see. In chat. No, I don't see anybody in chat. Okay, everybody has to think about it. It makes it a lot more fun, though. I mean, imagine one of your kids, especially, getting to win over the adults because you're all judged blind.
Yeah, you've got that. When you're selling your honey, it's award-winning honey. It's really what are you doing? When you get the different ribbons, you go in there and you see all these blue ribbons. Those are, because they're judged individually, they're judged on a point system. If you get a blue ribbon, that is something you can sell as, that's an elite honey, top shelf honey. Red ribbon is still a very good honey, but that's more of a high-end store quality. And then even if it would be a white ribbon, you could that's still a store quality honey. So you're knowing how good your product actually is. And there's a lot of blue ribbons at the fair because people pay attention to how they filled the jars, make sure they got the debris out of it, things like that. And like I say, it's award-winning honey. That goes for a couple bucks more.
Oh, and the people that you need volunteers at the honey booth. You have to have someone at the display all 11 days of the fair. And we already have 2 journeyman candidates that want to get trained with you on honey judging. And Heidi is here. She's in the list. And I'll send their names and contact information on to you.
That way we can, it's not hard to do training that day of what you're looking for. But if we can set up something ahead of time, if they have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, I'll get their information to you then. And
so we've sent you over the link for Sign Up Genius.
Right, and I don't know how to get to it without disconnecting myself. So I have to put it.
So you'll have to afterwards send that out to the club.
Yes.
And that'll be a way to get it. I'm looking for 1 or 2 people per shift. As many as I can get.
3-hour, 4-hour shifts.
It's a 4-hour shift. Okay. With that, you'll get 4 entry tickets to the fair and 1 parking pass with every shift you take.
And this is indoor for those people who shouldn't be out in the hot sun if it really, really gets bad.
And we do have some chairs in there.
Yeah.
And they try to push some air through to make it so it's not miserable for us. There'll be a couple observation hives. If somebody in the club would like to bring an observation hive for part of the fair.
Is it Mike Cossian? Is Mike Cossian bringing his?
He probably will.
Okay, if he doesn't, we just got a second observation hive. We keep one at the booth,
right?
The club booth, but we just got a second one, so we might be able to help. But he has a gorgeous one. It's really nice.
He's trying to sell his product. That's why he's because he's online. He's online.
And anybody who is showing your honey at the fair, it's blind at the judging, but then your name gets on it, right? With the winner.
Yeah, your name on it, where you're from, what area.
And at our club booth, we can't sell honey, but if you have cards or your contact information, we'll put it out for you. If you're a club member, hey, I figure that's a perk. And then we can also probably put it on the website. We've never done that, but I was thinking every year we get all these questions. Do you sell honey? No, we don't sell. We are an agricultural display, but we can definitely route them on to whoever is available.
So if I have your cards inside, we'll hand them out as well. Maybe somebody's from Marysville, somebody's from Sultan. Give them a card that's close to them.
Local honey. Support your local beekeeper. Okay, I think there's nothing else. No other questions. That was a lot of information.
There's online. We did say there's online entries, but on Saturday, the 19th, before the fair, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., you will bring in your honey that day, or whatever you have. And also, if you didn't get it signed up online, we'll enter right then. So you don't miss out if you didn't get it done online.
A lot of people are busy on that Saturday. We're talking about Saturday the
19th.
Okay, so on that day, if you do it online, you get a number, don't you? A ticket?
Yeah. You could do that, and somebody could drop it off for you.
Drops it off for you. So we can kind of coordinate that between beekeepers. One person can do the drop off, one can do the pickup, because you get almost all your honey back.
Yeah, when they taste, they're using a little stick, and it's just a dot of what it, and that's usually only tasted out of one jar. And so no double dipping. And
this is super easy. You use one place you go, you click on the thing on open class page. You go to this and it just walks you through those steps 1 through 6 at the end. And you can do more than one entry. I don't even think it has to be the same category. I mean, if you're doing something in knitting and crochet and something in canning, if it's open class, I think you just, as you go along, and then it will ask you, do you want to enter something else?
Right. If you have other things for other departments in the fair, you could do it all in one sign up, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it looked like when I was doing it last year. And so we'll figure it out if you can do these. I think it's a really fun thing to do. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. There's something in chat. Somebody put something in chat. Oh, Steve. Steve in our club. He says, yeah, the fair referral really paid off. Okay, everybody, give him some competition. Okay. You can even write your information on a 3x5 card or write it on something and people will take a picture with their smartphone of it. If it doesn't take up too much space at our club booth, we'll put anybody's information up that would like to sell. And again, we cover like King and Snohomish counties, so you are likely to be very close to somebody who wants real local honey. That was great, Tim.
Okay, well, thank you for letting me come, and we will make arrangements to get you guys your tickets ahead of time. Mm-hmm. I don't even have the tickets in my hand yet.
I just ordered for the club, so yeah.
We will get them there. Some of it will be done at Snohomish Bee Company. They say that they'll help me. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing to accept other people's help too if it's available. Here's some information in the chat for me. Okay. And then that Sign Up Genius link, if you're like me, I don't know how to put it in to the chat without disconnecting us. So we'll send it out. Okay, yeah, I will try to when I stop talking here, have my boss, she'll fix it up for me. Okay. Usually. Okay, well, thank you guys. And I look forward to the rest of the meeting. Okay, yeah, if you want to stay on and listen, we're going to talk some more about our fair too, our fair booth and such. But thank you so much. Okay. So a lot of people signed on later, and I promised that I have an agenda. Okay, I'm sorry. Close your eyes while I do this. Okay, get back to the beginning. We had Tim. Okay, so we know how to enter, and if you need shaded indoors place to volunteer at the booth, Tim's Honey booth will get you indoors and in the shade. And then I want to talk about the club fair booth a whole bunch, I know, but a lot of that counts for journeyman service points, both the honey booth and the club fair booth. Presentations, we actually can do short presentations on the outdoor stage. Walt did them. I don't know if Walt's here. I didn't look to see if Walt's here. I can't see everybody at once. Nope, I don't see Walt here tonight, but he's the fair chair and he's in the newsletter. Everything, the contact information, except for Tim, is probably in the newsletter. Then we should talk a little about extraction and what we're doing in the club apiary, and then get into the questions. So the Evergreen State Fair is going to take up a lot of time. There's Walt, if you remember for last year. Over on the far right there. We have an observation hive. That's a real hit. If you haven't done this, the neatest thing about coming to the fair is this is really our social time. When you really get down to it, this is our big event when we get together as beekeepers and meet other beekeepers, and the other beekeeper club booth is really close to us too. So we're outside in this one area and together. And so people are stopping by and asking questions. And when it gets slow, you get to talk to your colleagues who are also there helping staff. And we're trying to get 3 people per shift to just make it easy. They're kind of long shifts, 4 hours. But on the other hand, especially with 3 people,
It goes fast, and anybody who needs a break can go get it. I want to get to the July, August concerns. Let me finish the fair first. Sorry, things are a little out of order here. Fair. Oh, and we just had a honey extracting, the Dietzels. I don't know if they're here, but Joe and Dennis hosted an extraction, gave everybody a chance to see how you extract with the little hand crank 2-frame extractors. It'll get you through the first year, especially if you have the right kind of equipment, buckets, frame rest. They took everybody through that. And then they had fun doing honey tasting. We just grabbed every kind of honey. People give me honey because they know that I'm a beekeeper, and they go someplace, they bring me back some honey. So there was everything from Manuka to, I think, New Zealand and then some soap samples, which actually that's a bee product. I don't know if that goes, I don't think that goes in the bee category. I think it would go under another open class division. Yeah, because they only had wax, but I bet that does go in open class someplace. And they went through all how to do it. Here's a frame rest. In case you've never seen this handy dandy little device, you rest it on a bucket and it has a little notch in it and your frame fits in it. And we have one set of this that if you come to get the one extractor, we have the little extras. A lot of people already have their extras for extracting. But if you don't, it's kind of nice to try using a frame rest and a hot knife, a heated decapping knife. There's the spinner. Then the double strainer, just going through it and seeing how messy it can get. And you can control the mess somewhat, but not completely. T-shirts for the fair. Everyone that does 2 shifts. Becky Glaze still is volunteering to do all the work. She did it all last year for free. She's volunteering to do all that work again this year. But she needs your T-shirt size if you are going to help staff the booth and you're going to do 2 shifts. She would be delighted to make you one of these wonderful T-shirts. So there's back and front here. That's the bee peeking over. And bees do kind of peek at you over the frame like that. But really cute. This is people last year having fun in the T-shirts. And if you're working at the fair, every person in your household who is of age, so high schoolers are included, and then for each of you that works a 4-hour shift at the fair, you get an entry into the prize drawing. And we did this membership drawing before. Everybody who signs up for the 22-23 year or works at the fair, each shift, you will get an extra ticket. The chances were not much more than 1 out of 50 that you would win a prize last year. What did we have? Oh, we had the huge quilt and a Guardian high quality bee jacket and veil. This year we have a slightly smaller quilt, but it's really cute. Look at the close-up. I had to do a close-up of those log patterns, whatever that pattern is called. And then we have another grand prize, an entire deep box hive with the 2 lids and the bottom board. You could always use more equipment. If you're experienced, if you're a beginner, you need everything you can get. And we will draw names, and in the order we draw them, you get to pick your prize. And if one of these 2 prizes isn't the one you want, we'll have other prizes too. And that's why I was wondering if Walt was on. I know he was going to make some bee-themed napkin type holders. And I think they'll be at the fair holding our brochures is actually what we'll be using them for. But then we'll probably have like a box of honey jars or bottles, because I have some that was donated to the club. So we'll get back to you soon on that. But the 2 big prizes we know we have them. And then we did the fair entries. Then I think I should quickly tell you what's going on with the queen workshop, the queen wearing workshop. First round's done. I know over a dozen queens were adopted. And then we're on a second round. That's completely proofed queens. You have seen them lay compact pattern, worker brood on, where they're supposed to be. No drone brood in the worker cells. You've seen that, and you take a queen home on a frame of her own brood to introduce her, which is considered one of the best ways to introduce a queen. And it worked out that it was a queen for every 5 hours that people worked. So if they came twice, like 2 Saturdays, they had 5 hours in usually, and then they could take home. And so that's worked pretty well this year. We're on round 2 of that, and we need lots of help this Saturday and every Saturday. It's in the newsletter, or you can always email. So it actually started, round 2 actually started July 1st and goes right up to the fair, to the 5th or 22nd. I think that should be the 19th, because 19th is the Saturday before the fair. Okay, I think that's the 19th. So we're partway through that. And we are looking for how would you do this as a club, do it efficiently, and how to work the timeline around our weather, around our personal lives, trying to figure out, are there any shortcuts and which steps are essential? Can't skip them. So on round 2, I put in yellow here where we are. So this is actually the 4th Saturday of round 2, but it's not too late to come in, drop by. Next year, we'll probably do it as a class, you sign up workshop, and we'll probably charge. But this is where we are on. We've already got, we did cell builders, we did removing supersedure cells, we set up the mating nukes, we transferred the capped cells in, the queen cells in, and then this Saturday, we check to see if those queen cells emerged. Okay, a few of them don't emerge. And quite often, we just take the time and open it up and see, is there a reason it didn't emerge? Sometimes we can't see why, but an occasional pupa doesn't emerge. Or the bees rejected it, perhaps. And then if we find that one mating nuke has an unemerged queen, she didn't make it, we can put another one in if we have them grafted. And we did. We did some grafting last Saturday as well. So we know we've got some. We set up, we actually set up our first styrofoam mini nukes today. If you're interested, I know it might be a little advanced for people who haven't even thought about queen raising, but it's interesting to see. A lot of what I'm putting on this page to a beginner seems confusing. To someone a little more advanced, it's interesting. And we've got the equipment in one place and we can play with it. And you can try out all this without buying the equipment yourself. So we're at the point where we're looking to see this Saturday, did the queens emerge? We're going to give them a couple weeks to mate, fly out, mate, return, lay eggs. It's all scheduled out up through Saturday 8, week 8, it says, but it's actually the end of the 7th week. It takes, the wonderful thing about coming to this, even as a drop-in, is you sort of understand queen physiology. And we tell you, I'll show you this when I teach classes. I show people this, a queen develops in 16 days. And when you're actually looking at the queen cells and you get to see them from 1 week to the next and the jump, you start realizing that if you see a queen cell and it's capped over, well, these are upside down. Okay, good. Well, if it's capped over, you only have so many days before that queen emerges. It doesn't really hit when we say the development time is 16 days from egg to emergence. What's more important is you saw a queen cell and you may have a week if you're lucky. If it's capped, you don't even have that much. You just have about 5-6 days maximum because you can't tell when a capped cell was capped. So it's really, really great for understanding all kinds of things about your queens and drones, seeing it hands-on. If you want to try grafting, you are trying to get, this is about the largest you would take here, this larvae. You're actually a little smaller than that would actually be good, but that's okay. You are trying to pick one up with one of these tools. That's what Melanie's doing in the previous picture. I didn't let you see. Melanie's getting pretty good at it. She's done a couple of rounds, and I see her getting really good by next year. Not that Melanie's necessarily volunteering to do this again and again, but she was getting pretty good at it. She picked up and she transferred those in. There's the transfers. You take, and the milky liquid, of course, is the royal jelly. But you're doing it with tools like this. The top one is the little, they call it the bamboo Chinese one, And down below is the rigid grafting tools. Everybody has a favorite. We have several types. So if you want to try that, the reason I mentioned grafting in particular is that we're going to do it this Saturday morning. I think I promised to do it 10 to noon, regular queen rearing workshop 1 to 3, but you could come and graft then too. Then after you've grafted, the bees draw out the cells from those little cups. And of course, queen cells grow downward instead of the other way, the way the rest of the bees grow upward. So this is how here they are in the in-between stage. These aren't capped yet. You aren't going to get perfect. I mean, sometimes you get, your first attempt can look like this, but your second attempt might look like this. And if you've been at it a few times, or you're just really good, right, Nathan? Really good with your hands, you get like the top row. Okay, grafting. Grafting is a concept that's all over the internet. It's the best known. That's why people want to do it. It's understandable, but we have a short queen season, and it does fit well into a short queen season. It's good for people who are scaling up. You're thinking about getting more hives and doing it early enough in the season, and you want to get it going fast. If you could do walk-away splits, but every time you do a walk-away split, you lose part of your honey production for the year because you are taking a large hive that would have been maybe really productive and you're splitting it into, say, 2, or you could be even making smaller 5-frame nukes out of, say, a 20-frame hive. And people say you can make honey or raise queens. You can make honey or raise a lot of bees. You can moderate it and do some of both. But if you really want to get a lot of queens, get a lot of hives going, maybe even sell queens, this is what you would do. But you don't get the earliest queens this way, and you are weather dependent. All queen raising is weather dependent, but this is especially weather dependent. And you need some special equipment that it's better to see at the club apiary before you go out and buy it yourself. I wouldn't try it before you've tried it with someone else's equipment. And the cassette did work. We borrowed Nathan's cassette, and it kind of worked. You put 100, instead of trying to transfer the larva into the little cup, you take all the cups, here's 100 cups down at the bottom, you put them into a framework, and this is the back of them, and then you flip it over. I don't think I have the picture of flipping it over. And the hope is that if you trap the queen inside the cassette, you have her under a little piece of queen excluder, she will lay into the cups. It worked. We got maybe a dozen. We just did it the first try out of 100. I put the cassette back in, but this time I didn't put the queen excluder on. I was kind of hoping that now that the bees had worked the whole frame, maybe, and the plastic that surrounds the cups, that they might accept it and she might just lay in it. So that's what we're waiting to see now, is if she laid in it. We'll probably know Saturday. I put that in because the cassette method would save you a lot of trouble trying to scoop those little larvae up and get them in correctly. And the trickiest part is the larva has to be undamaged, transferred in without being turned over, without being flipped. And that's the hardest part. There's a lot of pieces. It looks complicated until you just come out and see it. Yeah, and we have ended up with all kinds of equipment of all kinds that you can see if you come out. I am going to, like lightning, go back to where I started. Oh dear, sorry. How did I do that? I'm not sure how I did that. Maybe it doesn't let me do that. Okay. Okay, just a second while I get check stumped again. Okay. I may have to do this. I'm sorry, the wrong way. I have a lot of queen presentations. And so I'm going to have to go way back because I think this is one of my 200 slide presentation. I'm sorry, just don't watch this if it makes you dizzy to watch slides go past you. Okay, and we did some of this. A lot of these slides were in a previous monthly meeting where I did the presentation on how we were going to do this. I'm really sorry, we're going back like 200 slides here. Even catching and marking some very interesting slides if we ever want to talk about this. And next spring, I would like to cover this. We're getting there, honest. This is last time's presentation. Okay, that's where I started. There were the fair entries. Okay, we're going back to the beginning. Okay, the agenda. We talked about the club. Club fair booth. I guess that's where we are now. Except there's pictures already on our website. We are doing queens and grafting this Saturday, the 22nd, and the Saturday after that, I think I listed that we were going to look at types of varroa treatments. Sometimes people are really confused on how many types of varroa treatments there are. We're going to go through some of them. The thymol, the formic, the one that you hang as a strip, I consider the toxic one, Apivar. Go through a number of the types so you can see them. And sometimes when people are holding the varroa treatment and looking right at it, it makes more sense what we're going to have to do. Why are we talking varroa? Because the varroa population leaps at this time of the year. No matter what we do, it zooms up. And we have to be prepared, start monitoring, start testing now. Alcohol test, mite board drop, a double dose of oxalic acid vaporization, like 3 to 5 days apart, and see what the mite drop is onto a slide out board. If this doesn't make sense and you're a beginner and you're overwhelmed by varroa, show up on the 29th. I think that's in the morning, 10 to 12. And I'm repeating it the next week because it's so important that you select what you're going to do about varroa. Monitor and don't delay on treating, get going. It's already time to be concerned about it. Let me see. So there's the basic booth, observation hive. We're going to double the size of our canopy this year. We need more shade, to be truthful. It can get really hot. It was great fun. I don't know for honey tasting there. I know that Steve came out. Steve Howard's on here, and he had fun doing tasting. And I think, let's see. There were a couple of concerns that are coming up. Yeah. I put in the Facebook group a picture of a drone laying queen. I am seeing so many of these now. People are seeing a lot of them. A drone laying queen is a queen who never mated properly, or she has a genetic defect. Somehow, every egg she lays is not fertilized. That means she lays only drone eggs. Now, she should do that only in drone comb. But when she has no other kind of egg to lay, she starts laying on your worker comb. And the workers at first, I'm sure they don't want to do it. They know workers take drone eggs out of worker brood cells. But finally, this is all the brood they have that they can raise, so they start raising these eggs, even despite the fact that they're actually drone eggs in the wrong size cell. But the workers give up. If that's all she's laying, they have to grow it out. And you end up with a hive where it's failing because they're only laying drones. There are no new workers emerging. So I really want people to, if they don't understand this picture, please let me know. You can't really see in this picture, but what's happening in this picture is you can kind of see if you really look, I think, that in between the bubble dome, the dome tops, the caps of the drone brood, there's cells with larvae in them. Those are all drone larvae. And that's all. And the bees keep trying to make one cell a little wider and take the larvae and throw that one out. And then that one starts to get larger. So they make that cell larger when the one next to it emerges. And you end up with this really frantic pattern, but it is corner to corner larvae of all ages messed together. Totally not at all normal honeybee pattern. So I wanted to show a picture of that. And then we have a lot of concerns. People are still having trouble with swarming. I hope that slows down. Yellow jackets and bald-faced hornets. And it may sound funny, but with that slow, cold spring we had and odd things happening, there are people that are still trying to feed nukes and packages to get them up to 2 deeps worth of wax or 3 westerns worth of wax for overwintering. If you are a beginner, one of your biggest concerns is to get enough drawn comb, because if you don't have the foundation drawn out into cells, where are the bees going to spend the winter and where are they going to put their winter stores? And now I'm seeing the questions on Facebook about, are we in flow or are we in dearth? And the missing in action queens, they should be there, but you can't find them. Droneling, I just showed you, that's one of there is a queen there, and she's a problem because you can't just put another queen in. You have to get rid of her first. So the missing in action queens, that's a big one. Sometimes there's just so many bees you can't see her. Sometimes she's on a mating flight. Maybe it was a requeening due to a swarm or a supersedure, and she's out. And you're not seeing eggs because she's so young. Okay. Dearth. We already had rain dearth. We have 2 types of dearth in Western Washington. I never see anybody else in the rest of the United States mention rain dearth. We have rain dearth. Our bees can't fly when it's raining or it's too cold. And because of that, we end up feeding them pollen and liquid feed at times that other parts of the United States aren't. I never see anybody refer to it, but that's a dearth. When you get a hive, you're trying to get it going in the spring, you end up sometimes feeding it just because they don't have anything to eat. And the missing in action queens, you don't see eggs. People assume, well, I don't have a queen. But sometimes it's that the bees are in dearth. In dearth, the workers decide at what point they feel that they don't have enough food to feed all of the larvae. And they will start following behind the queen and cannibalizing her eggs. And then the very youngest larvae, and up until you look in the hive and you see no eggs. If you see any open larvae, they're much older, and you think your queen's missing. Not always, if it's a dearth period. And now we start the next dearth period, the drought, in late July, August. Now this one, everybody, I hear about this in all beekeeping books, the dry drought, because there's less nectar. But oddly enough, in Western Washington, we get lots of pollen. One of the ways you recognize that you're going into late summer drought is that all the returning foragers are bringing in pollen, but you're not really seeing much brood, if any, in the hive. The bees will be bringing in pollen, but it's not because there's brood to feed. It's because there's nothing else to forage. There's just not a nectar flow, often between the blackberry and the knotweed. So hopefully you get a good knotweed flow or some other flow in late summer, fall. Okay, beginners think they aren't seeing the queen. I don't know how much time to spend on this. I cover it in all of my classes, but it's always good to review this. You can't find the queen. You are worried. Okay, maybe you had a sudden drop in population. Okay, that could mean half your hive took off. Okay, you may have to wait in that case for the virgin queen who's on a mating flight. And if that happens, you just should be careful not to change the look or position of the hive in the middle of the day, which is when a lot of people go in to inspect their hives. I would say most people. You don't move anything, just verify it, note it, and close it back up and wait. Queen excluders won't stop virgin queens or old dieted queens that are ready to go out and swarm. I just want to warn you that. So that's not going to keep your queen inside if they want to swarm. That's not going to do it. Even putting a piece over your entrance is not going to do it. But if you think something's happening, remember to check your queen calendar. Okay, if it might be a queen on a mating flight, how many days? If it was her first mating flight, when would I see eggs? When did I see a supersedure cell that was open or capped? How many days before I would see eggs? And calculate that out. But a lot of times you need to know, is there a queen in there? And you've searched. There's too many bees. You can't find her. Do the ultimate queen test. And I have decided to name it that because it solves your problem. You take a frame of open brood with eggs or very small larvae from a hive that does have it, and you put it in, as long as it's a healthy hive, which it will be if it has eggs and very small larvae, it's probably a very healthy hive. You can put that in to the one you suspect may not be queen right. And you mark the top of it. Come back, even in 4 days, you will probably see the result, but definitely in a week, you'll see the result. And there are 3 possible outcomes. If a hive is queenless and you gave it hatching eggs, very small larvae that it can turn into a queen, there you go. You're going to come back in a week and you're going to see supersedure cells. If you come back in a week and the bees took care of the larvae and raised them out as workers, no queen cells. They are sure they have a queen. There's a third outcome, especially when it's dry, or actually in rain dearth too. You come back and instead of there being supersedure cells or worker brood being cared for, the bees have stripped the eggs and the larvae off. That tells you they're in dearth. You're going to need to repeat this. Feeding the bees syrup. I know it's the middle of summer, but sometimes they're in dearth and they need a little boost. Feed them liquid syrup. 1-to-1 is fine. Do it again with the frame. Oh, you have to do it for about 3 days in advance. Give the bees some time to go out of we're starving mode back into, oh, we can raise brood. To be absolutely sure which way to read this test, give them the liquid feed for a few days. I'd say 3 or 4 days. Come back and then again, put the frame with the eggs or very small larvae, mark the top, and now they'll raise it out either as worker brood or as supersedure cells, emergency cells. And the other thing you're doing with this ultimate queen test is you're adding open brood, which is going to delay laying worker development. So that is also very helpful. Another thing that people are wondering, and I don't know the answer to this would make great discussion. Somebody tell me, are we going to end up with an extended blackberry flow? Because we walk over to look at our blackberries, and in one picture, we see tight buds, flowers, and berries. So not all the flowers have even started to, not even all the flowers have started to bloom yet. So we're getting to the end of July. It's looking like we're going to have one of those extended blackberry flows. Tell me if you think that's good or bad. I don't know. Dearth. People ask about dearth. I have the list here if anybody wants to see it. Figured I'd keep it handy. And then the signs of robbing. And I don't know if I'm boring people or not. And when you are inside the hive, in a lot of ways, dearth you see inside the hive. Your bees brought in a lot of honey, nectar, and suddenly you go in the next time, it doesn't seem to be as many frames of honey and nectar. If your bees, you're trying to let them do things on their own, if they get down to less than 2 to 3 frames, like deep frames worth of capped honey, they can decide that they're going to start cannibalizing the eggs, cutting down that brood production. And when you go into your hive, sometimes that bee bread ring that to be right around the brood pattern, that's disappearing. And you just see less brood being reared. The eggs, the uncapped open larvae, they're just disappearing. So watch your hives. And on the inside, you see it this way. And then the previous slide was how you see it on the outside. The bees act differently. They get irritable, maybe. There's a whole list of things that just are different. And if you've been in your hive often enough and for enough years, that helps too. Robbing is something, when you see it, it's unmistakable, I think. But before that, you're going, I don't know. Is that cleansing flights or orientation? Is that, what's going on here? So there's a whole set of things that, again, I'm happy to send anyone or come back to this slide, but I don't want to spend too long for people who have questions that are really important to them. Robbing screens are getting really important. The yellow jackets, I see about 12 comments in chat. I hope you're sharing your favorite yellow jacket solution. This is my go-to, and the best is the actual one with a blind. The bees, when this is opened up and this one's closed, you make the smallest opening during a robbing season, that you can get away with. And when this piece of sheet metal there, the little piece of flashing, keeps the robbers, the wasps and the hornets and bees that are robbing, it keeps them from seeing how the bees came in and out, and they keep trying to get in through the screen. So it's a baffle. It's not perfect, but it's a big help, a bigger help than just reducing the size of your entrance, which is something to do as soon as you think your bees are not packing that entrance. If there's room, I'm watching the yellow jackets go straight in right now. And stopping robbing. This is a good time to share your favorite. Stopping it, a bit easier to prevent. If you have to stop it, you often have to completely shut your hives down. You can put a wet towel sheet over. You can lock it up. And if you have a screen bottom board, no problem locking it up. There's no way they're going to overheat because you can pull the slide out. I've read a lot of Vicks Vapor Rub. Some people do that to confuse robbers, because when robbers start robbing, wasps and hornets included, they will leave the pheromones on their feet. In ants and such, is called trail pheromone. They'll put that on the front of the hive, on the landing platform. So something stinky like Vicks Vapor Rub, I haven't tried that, but it sounded like it might work. Shading the entrance by leaning a whole panel, a large piece of roofing panel or plywood against the front of the hive, because bees don't like to enter shade. And the robbers, I guess, can't really do their approach where they kind of go back and forth, zigzagging in front of the hive and then diving in suddenly, which is one of the ways you recognize robbing bees as opposed to friendly bees that trying to dive in and sneak in. But once robbing starts, you're probably going to have to maintain the shutdown for more than a day. So be prepared for that. Classes and stuff like that is in the newsletter. So I thought about here is a good time for me to stop and say, what are people interested in? What ideas you have? Yellow jacket traps. That's one thing I'm really wondering about. So, okay, I promise I've stopped talking now. What are people's real concerns here? Fireweed. Somebody mentioned if they're still drawing out comb, but we should be in dearth. The fireweed was blooming early. Has everybody else noticed that? And just blooming, blooming, blooming. Little patches of it here and there. Okay, Michael Duncan's over on about Quailscene area. And he says, effectively, comb building, you can still count on it till about August 1st to the 15th. And I guess fog, okay, I'm not sure what that means, Michael. That just means that they start pulling out some frames, fog some frames. Is everyone else reading the chat? Okay. Steve's putting the cartoons in there. Any comments, questions? And I can talk on and on about bees, so I want other people to talk, though. Here, if I stop share, we can see each other. And Tim's still on here, too. You could maybe still hit him for some questions. Oh, no, the neighbor mowed down the fireweed. Okay, quick, collect all those seeds and bring them over to my place. We'll scatter all those seeds. I can't see all the chat, but I see Mustafa's. There's a big thing on the internet about if you can get some drawn comb, you can boost starting a new hive. And there's some truth to that. But first of all, did the drawn comb come from a healthy hive? That's my first question. Makes me a little nervous getting drawn comb. But for beginners who have nothing but blank foundation, and then they try to put a package is the worst. If you put a package on blank foundation in a cold spring like we've had, it was horrible for people that bought packages and they had only blank foundation. The last 2 springs were a real lesson in buy a nuke. And the reason to buy a package, if you ever hear me do 180 on this, if we get really bad outbreaks of EFB or something like that, then you get packages because you get no brood disease with them, right? Packages are all adult bees. So many pounds of adult bees with a queen. So that is why packages were really popular in a lot of places, one of the reasons. But the drawn comb question, I just wouldn't do it. I consider it too much risk. I just get a nuke and you've got 5 frames of drawn comb. Probably 4 at least, and maybe 5 right there. Anybody else have thoughts on that? But I know it's a big topic on the internet. Okay. So dearth has hit on Elk Plain. Okay. Yes. Okay. Michael Duncan, you have, if you're still on here, you have to explain what fog is. But you mean like on a black? Okay, come on, Michael, you have to tell us.
He wrote it in the chat.
Okay, it's later on. Okay. Okay, later down.
I guess it's like a breath of the beginning of your drawn out, you know, with a little coating.
Actually, I love those frames because when they're backfilling the brood nest, if you can get one of those frames and put it in right when the queen is desperately trying to lay, sometimes she will lay right in there. And then I mark the top of it and come back in 3 days and you can graft from it. So I like fogged frames. They're actually useful.
Ooh, I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the only thing is, if you don't feed them liquid feed or they think they're in dirt or something, if something like that happens, they will scrape the entire, they'll take all the eggs out. I marked a frame that had eggs. I was going to be so with it. I was going to show people I knew how to graft. And I was just going to walk out there and pull out this frame 3 days later. And it was going to be just just molted eggs that were just, they don't really hatch. They kind of molt a little. The outer coating doesn't. Okay, so I was going to look like I knew what I was doing. I pull out this frame and it's no eggs. They were there 3 days before, but we went into dearth. So, but I like foggy comb. Okay. Mustafa's asking about nuke with overwintered queen versus new queen in cage. A nuke with overwintered queen should cost a little more than a regular nuke because it's probably local, I assume. That's the only way I would know that you would get a nuke with an overwintered. Well, maybe. I don't know. Does anybody know anybody who doesn't? But she has never stopped laying. Oh, same cost. Okay.
Yeah, I got mine for the same cost the first 2 years when I started. She sold me overwintered queens and my nukes, and the cost wasn't any different. But I don't know about this year, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The overwintered queen, if she was overwintered in that nuke with her own brood, that should be better. The new queen had to stop laying. She's gone through stress and shock. There's a 25% supersedure rate just acknowledged. For decades, it's been acknowledged in like packages when you put a queen in. So a nuke with a queen in a cage would still have some supersedure. I'd go with the overwintered queen, but I don't know.
Yeah, Eli, can you hear me?
Yes, Michael. Except your picture just froze. And now we can't hear you. Okay, Michael will get back when he can. We have a lot of it's one of the problems of Zoom, isn't it? Okay, laying worker hives. Is Jen still on her? Did she just give up and move off? Oh, there you are, Jen. Okay. Laying worker hives. For a laying worker situation to develop, you don't have queen hormones present and you don't have brood hormones present. And the brood hormones are, I think people say that those are even more important than the queen hormones, that you can delay the development of laying workers being a problem by just keep putting in open brood. When they lay, they don't lay from corner to corner like that frame I showed you. If I could show you, and I could not get good enough a picture of how there was larvae of all ages all over that frame. I don't have a way to do that, but they're very popcorn. It's very just hit and miss because they're laying a drone egg in a worker cell. So usually the nurse bees go, that's wrong. And we don't know if it's a little bit of queen pheromone that's missing, but sometimes the laying worker doesn't lay in the center of the cell, which is what the queen does. Her abdomen is long enough to get all the way down. So she can back in and lay all the way at the bottom, send an egg standing in the center for the first day or so, and then it falls over inside. But still, it was laid in the center. It's not on the sides. And laying workers have a hard time getting all the way down. So position inside the cell, how they call it scattered popcorn pattern instead of solid. Okay, that. Multiple eggs in a cell, that's another one, but that can also happen with a drone laying queen. And it can happen with a brand new queen temporarily. Anybody else think of something? But first of all, you have to have an absence of brood, basically. And probably a queen as well, because that's why there's no brood often. Yeah, multiple eggs. That's pretty good, isn't it? Anybody got another one for a laying worker? Now I can confuse you with laying workers exist at all times in all hives, supposedly. Okay, and it makes sense. If you had 50,000 females in a hive, and they're all supposed to get the reproductive capacity reduced by queen pheromone, if a bee emerges and is right there in the brood nest with the queen and coming into contact with her pheromones all the time, she's going to be pretty suppressed. She ain't going to lay. Okay, but when she gets older and starts to go out and forage, and she spends part of the day away from the hive, well, she's not under the same suppression. She's not working right next to the brood and the brood pheromones, and she's not there with the queen pheromone. She comes in for night, but actually there's a tiny bit of laying workers that they know is happening all the time. And there was a researcher that actually researched it and figured out percentages. It's a tiny fraction of 1% of the workers will ever lay eggs, but they have the capacity. So actually, if you really want to confuse people, tell them, well, they always have laying workers in their hives, and they'll look at you like you're crazy. But it makes sense. Would the suppression be equal on all 50,000 bees in the hive? No. Some would escape the suppression and lay one unfertilized egg at a time. But the nurse bees almost always catch it. Although every once in a while you do see a drone egg in the middle of the worker brood and you go, did somebody slip up?
I saw that today.
Yeah,
in one of my hives, one drone cell. Yeah. I'm here like, really? What? You wanted a son?
Did the queen fail, or was it the workers failed to get that egg out because somehow it did get into the center of the cell and it looked right? They don't know if they can smell it, kind of. Is there something the queen leaves a little scent when she lays an egg?
Because man, I have brood everywhere. They're brooding up like crazy, and I thought, well, I'm not going to worry about one cell. Yeah. But it looks stupid.
Yeah. You go, Any other questions? Because I don't want to make sure we cover anything people want to cover. I hope the swarms are finished. Please tell me the swarms are finished. That was one of the longest swarms, latest running swarm seasons on record, I think.
Yeah, I added supers today because I don't trust mine. I have a lot of bees, and they were way at the top, and I thought I'm not going to take a chance. It's getting too late in the season. So I threw a super on each, and they have a lot of honey. I was really surprised.
Yeah.
I actually do have a question. I have a 7-frame Apame out front, and it's got 4 supers now, or 3. It's got the brood box and then 3 other supers. And can I overwinter in that, or is it going to be like a swarm generator? I know that that setup is a swarm generation setup. So I made sure they were really full. And she had brood on the outside frame on the outside. So I thought, you're getting too crowded. So hopefully I'm in time, but do you think I can overwinter in that with three supers? I mean, with 3.
Tony's going to try this since he's the Apame person that we've got right here.
Oh, okay.
Right, Tony?
Go ahead, Tony. Tell me.
Okay. You had a question about Apame? What was your? I mean, you want to?
Well, yeah, I want to overwinter in it, and just leave them alone. I don't want to move them because it's getting late and it's hot right now. They're testy, and I have the brood box on, and then 3 supers. One's a deep, and the other 2 are mediums. And I just added that last one today, so it's empty. And I wanted to make sure they had enough room because they're getting crowded. And I'm wondering, do you think I can pull off wintering them in there?
You might be able to, as long as they got enough pollen and honey stores and everything.
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of that. The one whole super is almost full of honey.
Wow. I would think that if you had a deep, see, I'm just going with deeps and medium, one deep and one medium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Oh yeah, I can tell you what's been going on with my bees. And also I had something to report about Apame product. They stopped a product line because I told them it wasn't working. I mean, you want me to show you real quick, not to change the subject?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I have another question for you then.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sure. I have the Queen Defender, and my idea, what happened, I had a one strong hive that came out of spring. The two strong hives that were really strong, they became weak, and the queens, they just petered out. They were just only laying a few eggs here and there. So what I ended up doing is I put them in my Queen Defender, which has 4 chambers. You can make it like a one big deep, or you can make it into 1 nuke, 2 nukes, 3 or 4. And you can do that with this thing.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
I don't have that, but I've seen it.
Well, there's a bridge. See, there's a bridge. You can put them. So I can have a nuke in there. And what my idea was, and I successfully did this. But however, I bridge these together, and they're wobbly. And when I had wax in here, and I put them in before those bees started doing, building up, this thing had just kind of fell like that.
Oh, that's terrible. What a mess.
Oh yeah. So I notified them, and I'm looking at it, and I don't know if you can see. Yeah, I bet you can. You see these air gaps in here? These things don't close all the way. And down below on this bridge, there's little hooks, but up here they don't have them. And this top goes in, it bottoms out, so it makes that gap.
There's nothing to grip.
They stopped making, they're not selling the Queen Defender. They went back to the folks that make these, because I told them that. They even sent me a $64 gift card. They sent me another batch. They said, yeah, okay, we guess we have a little problem there. And they sent me a new batch of all these, and they were worse than the first batch. So I immediately,
Oh, no.
Yeah. So anyway, they're going to work on it and get back. They were also going to make plastic mediums or supers, which I want, because I want to go all ABS food grade plastic. I didn't want to work with the wood, because these things are really nice. They snap. Actually, I usually take my Swiss Army knife. Okay. Well, anyway, they split apart, and you can just put your wax in there, snap them together, put them in. Or maybe I'm using, well, if they had the supers, I can make honeycomb, or I could still extract because they're strong enough. And
I'll tell you, anytime you have all those workable parts, the margin for error just gets larger and larger. It's just scary, especially you don't know if they're running it off of a 3D printer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then something else, last year you said you drilled holes because in one of the feeders because the bees weren't coming up, right?
They won't go up there once it gets too cold, even though the Apame is insulated. So I just treated it like a top feeder, and I drilled a hole in one set, and I just switch them around, because usually your brood is to one side anyway. Mm-hmm. So they wouldn't even go up in the one feeder. They would only go in one feeder. And that's what I did. I just took a couple of feeders and put holes in, like a quarter size, with a tool. Yes. And they're more than happy. They're happy. I'm using them right now because I'm too lazy to do 1-to-1. So I threw Hive Alive one because
it works. 3 8-inch holes. I marked them. I drilled holes through them, and actually, when I took my Super Hive frames with fresh eggs, probably just minutes old, and I put them in 2 nukes. And then I did this about 19 days or 16 days before we started getting 70-degree weather. And I waited, and by golly, I got the queens. And now I got 6 hives, and I did that. And I also had 1 swarm. Our club president, Dave Morris, had a swarm, and I had a swarm responder on our list. I sent him out there to get the swarm. He just lived down the road. So I've been real busy. So I got 5 very strong hives, and I'm going to give that new queen just to see how she does. And if she doesn't, then I'll combine the two, the one that's doing really good, and then combine that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, but I have the feeders on the other ones. And I have one side I have 1-to-1, and then the other I have the drilled holes, and I made my own pollen honey patties and everything. And the bees are in there, going up in there. And that'll work for the winter, just like you did last winter.
I find it interesting that you did the little 3/8 inch holes. I just did 1/4 size.
Oh,
yeah.
well,
I just did one big hole so that the Hive Alive, when you put the 1/4 size hole in it,
sure.
I just put that right over. And then I leave the feeder sections open for candy, and I'll throw pollen patty on the top inside the feeder. And if they want to go in, they have that choice. And if they don't want to, they can just popolize it shut. So I leave it